She sacrificed meals for books. What the millionaire CEO discovered changed their lives forever. Emily had always worn her sacrifices like a badge of honor. In the heart of a small Midwestern town, every minute of her day was consumed by grit and love for her 11-year-old daughter, Mia. As the diner's floor squeaked under her worn-out shoes, she served coffee and smiles, her stomach often echoing its emptiness. Her modest home overflowed with book stacks teetering precariously that Mia had devoured with nurturing curiosity. Each dog-eared page was a testament to Emily's single-minded pursuit of the American dream. "Every meal skipped is an investment in your future, sweetheart," she reminded Mia, her tight chest filled with hope whenever she caught her daughter's eyes sparkling with dreams, yet, glory came with sharp edges. Mia, brilliant and sensitive, began to stand out at her wealthy school, where affluence created an invisible barrier. When the school announced a project focused on community impact, Mia's spark flickered. In a sea of designer clothes and polished looks, she felt the sting of social division. But swallowing her humiliation, she poured her heart into a passionate speech on economic inequality. "It's not about how much money you have, but how you treat others," she proclaimed, her voice ringing through the auditorium. The words pulsed with the echoes of Emily's late-night shifts and haunting memories of hunger. Among the audience sat John, a millionaire CEO whose heart resonated with Mia's outcry. He had once faced struggles similar to hers. As his interest piqued, he approached Emily, suggesting they collaborate on an initiative addressing community needs directly. Just as light pierced the shadows that loomed over Emily's life, doubts entangled her heart. Would he judge her? Would the town, laden with whispers of class divisions, accept her presence among the elite? She hesitated, fear creeping up her spine. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. Just when hope began to bloom in their lives, misunderstanding struck deep. Emily's worries tangled with pride, each thread a reminder of her humble beginnings. As the town's gossips began buzzing, she wrestled with her choice to engage with John's world. Should she embrace this opportunity or retreat to the familiarity of her struggles? At a community gathering, Emily stood up, her heart hammering, determination hardening her voice. "What is success without dignity? My worth isn't defined by my wallet," she declared, the crowd murmuring in surprise, eyes narrowing with support. As the murmurs grew, Mia's eyes shone brighter than ever. Emily felt the electric pulse of shared love and pain, binding their stories with that of the town's struggles. Would dignity rise over deep-rooted disparity? The challenge was set, and as pulsing hearts filled the room with renewed hope, Emily's fight had only just begun. She could feel change in the air, but could she hold on to her values amidst the swirling doubts? The whole town awaited the next chapter, on the cusp of transformation. The days stretched into weeks, and Emily found herself wrestling with thoughts of the future. Change seemed tantalizingly close, yet it felt like grasping smoke. The air buzzed with the whispers of the townsfolk, their intrigue mingling with skepticism. John had offered her a lifeline, but it felt like she was teetering on the edge of a grand precipice. Mia, on the other hand, seemed to thrive. Her confidence grew each day, and she moved through the school hallways with a spirited bounce, her head held high. She had become a voice for the unheard, a champion for those like Emily back home. But behind the spark in her eyes, Emily could sense her daughter's burdens as well, the pressure of expectations both from the lofty ideals she herself ignited and from the imposing social circle surrounding her. One evening, after a long shift filled with late-night conversations about hopes and dreams, Emily returned home to find Mia perched on the couch, a book in hand. "Mom!" Mia called out, her voice ringing with excitement. "Listen to this." Mia read aloud a passage about, of all things, the strength found in vulnerability. Each word echoed with Emily's quiet struggles, and an ache formed in her chest. "Do you think being vulnerable is a strength or a weakness?" Mia asked, peering up at her mother. Emily pondered this as she sat beside her, wrapping her arms around Mia. "Well, sweetheart, I think it's both. It takes a lot of courage to show your real self, even when it feels safer to hide." Mia nodded, and Emily could see her processing this idea, wrestling with her understanding of the world around her. The weight of their lives hung heavily, unraveling a tapestry that Emily had tried so hard to weave with care. The following week, Emily accepted John's invitation to a community meeting, the kind that had always felt out of reach. The venue was extravagant, a local art gallery adorned with shining lights and vibrant pieces. It felt otherworldly, a world apart from the diner's greasy aroma. Just as she crossed the threshold, Emily's heart raced, a tidal wave of anxiety crashing over her. She clutched Mia's hand tightly. "Mom, you're going to do great," Mia whispered, her belief shining through the unease. As she stepped into that room, she felt 1,000 eyes on her. She was the embodiment of grit in a realm of polished privilege, a patch of wildflower in a garden of manicured roses. John spotted her and waved, his smile warm and inviting. "Emily. Glad you could make it," he greeted, but as the discussions began, it became clear that not everyone was welcoming. Sly glances and hushed tones rippled through the crowd, and Emily felt the suffocating weight of doubt. When it was her turn to speak, the room fell silent. She had prepared a heartfelt plea about bridging community gaps, but her voice trembled with vulnerability. People forget that kindness costs nothing," she began, her heart racing. "We're all interconnected. Disparity lingers when we focus on differences instead of solutions." With every word, Emily poured her soul into addressing the crowd. She could see nods of agreement, but also hesitance. Some weren't ready to abandon their privilege. Mia watched from the side, eyes wide with admiration, but a shadow of worry crossed her face. Would she be enough? Would her mother's bravery shine through in a room full of powerful figures? Just as she spoke the words that could turn the tide, a familiar skepticism emerged from the crowd, a voice raising questions tinged with condescension. "How can you understand our challenges if you haven't lived them?" The question hung in the air, sharp and incisive. Emily froze momentarily, regret and anger coursing through her. But then she remembered her daughter and all the silent sacrifices they had endured together. "Because I choose to understand," Emily replied, conviction igniting her spirit. "And that choice is what can change everything." As murmurs rippled through the crowd, Emily held her ground, knowing she might be on the brink of something remarkable or utterly disastrous. She felt the room's energy shift, and all eyes were on her, waiting to see what would unfold next. Would her honesty forge a connection or further divide them? The stakes were higher than ever, but in that moment, Emily knew one thing: she'd never back down. What would happen next, when she pushed even further against the tide of doubt? A tight silence enveloped the room, and Emily felt the weight of countless expectations pressing down on her shoulders. The voice that had once felt like a whisper in her heart now became a roaring beacon of defiance. She took a deep breath and squared her shoulders, forcing herself to lean into the discomfort of the moment. "I understand struggle," Emily continued, her voice rising slightly above the murmur. "I understand what it means to feel invisible in your own community, to pack dinners just to make rent or skip meals to buy your daughter books. I know because I've lived it." A few surprised gasps echoed from the crowd, and she caught some raised eyebrows, unsure yet intrigued. "That's not just my story," she said, her eyes narrowing slightly, searching for those who didn't just hear her words but felt them. "It's many of our stories. Each of you sitting here tonight has faced some form of challenge, whether you admit it or not. And hiding behind our privilege doesn't make those challenges disappear. It only serves to build walls between us." She noticed a young couple to her left, their faces frozen in a mixture of disbelief and curiosity. They leaned closer to one another, whispering, and she wondered if they were weighing the truth she spoke in their own lives. Mia, her heart pounding in her chest, felt the connection between her mother and the audience strengthen, unraveling threads that had kept them apart for too long. The love she saw in her mother's eyes ignited a fire within her as well, the kind that would challenge any creature of comfort. And vulnerability, Emily added, isn't a sign of weakness. It's a lifeline, an invitation for open conversation, a way to build a bridge from our worlds to one another. Emily felt her heart race, the words spilling from her in a rush as if they had been waiting for this moment, to pierce the veil of doubt hanging in the air. Imagine a community where we don't just see each other as the poor and the privileged, but as neighbors. Where we share our resources, our ideas, and most importantly our hearts. The encouragement in the room began to shift as she glanced at faces softened with realization. People were starting to nod, some leaning in, their eyes searching her. Emily's spirit soared, but just as she began to sense a small ripple of change, the sharp voice that questioned her earlier piped up again, dripping with sarcasm. You really think that sharing your feelings will fix everything? What about real solutions? Her heart sank for a moment, ready to crumple under the weight of the challenge. But resilient fire ignited within her anew. It starts with empathy, she answered, her resolve anchoring her. It's not about one big act of benevolence, it's about a million small acts of compassion. We must dismantle our walls first, reach out and truly connect with one another. As she spoke, she locked eyes with Mia, who beamed with pride. That connection drew energy from the crowd, and she noticed a woman in the back begin to clap hesitantly, followed by another with a small but growing smile. Soon, a ripple of clapping broke out, louder and more assured. Emily felt as if she were flying, her efforts finally resonating, that maybe she could bring about change. But just as hope swelled within her, the original voice, now visibly annoyed, spat back, "What do you even know about the challenges we face? We're not the same." And there it was, the divide, bold and fierce. It sliced through the moment like a knife, demanding an answer. Emily's breath hitched, uncertainty rising once more. But then Mia stepped forward, her voice steady despite her youth. "You don't have to live someone's story to understand their pain," she stated firmly. "My mom may not have grown up like you, but she's fighting for all of us. That's what we need, people who care." A wave of gasps swept through the gallery. Emily's heart raced as she realized not just her words but her daughter's courage were now at play. Would this connection amplify their message, or would it be met with overwhelming resistance? The murmurings in the crowd grew loud, ebbing and flowing, as eyes now shifted between the two women charged with passion. In that instant, a flicker of hope bloomed within Emily, but she also felt the familiar dread creeping back in. Could they really unite this room, or would that divide remain stubbornly intact? With Mia standing strong beside her, Emily sensed a shift in the atmosphere. Maybe together they could bridge the gaps that once felt unbridgeable. But just as the tide was turning, another voice broke through, one that could either shatter their momentum or solidify their bond. What would that voice say? Who would it champion, their words or their silence? A heavy silence draped over the crowd, thick with anticipation as the new voice emerged, a sharp contrast to the warmth that had begun to fill the room just moments before. All eyes turned to the front, seeking the throat behind the formidable words. A middle-aged man dressed in an impeccably tailored suit stood, his expression a mix of skepticism and intrigue. "I'm Thomas," he began, his tone tinged with a mockery that made Emily's stomach twist. "And while I commend your heartfelt stories, I'm afraid the truth is a bit more practical. Hopes and dreams don't pay bills. What does empathy buy? Nothing." Emily felt her breath hitch, but Mia stepped even closer, her small frame standing defiantly. "That's where you're wrong," she challenged, her voice unwavering. "There's power in empathy. If we understand each other, we can create real solutions." The murmur in the room flickered, a spark of energy igniting again. But Thomas only chuckled quietly, a mirthless sound. "While you share feelings, my company juggles millions. That's the reality. Your dreams are lovely, but they don't get anyone out of poverty, do they?" Actually, Emily found herself saying, not backing away, real change often begins with understanding. It's not just about balancing budgets, it's recognizing the human side of the numbers. Thomas's eyebrows shot up, feigning surprise. And how exactly do you propose to change a community? By coming together over coffee and sharing experiences? Yes. Mia exclaimed, her voice resonating with fierce passion. Yes. It starts there. If we chose to connect, we could unite our resources, create programs, share knowledge. It's not about ignoring the numbers, it's about seeing the faces behind them. The crowd leaned in now, some nodding in fervent agreement. Emily could feel the heat rising. There was tension, but also hope as others felt the urge to speak up. She noticed a woman near the back, shuffling nervously, her hands tightly gripping her notebook. With a clear voice, she hesitated, then jumped in. I've struggled, so much just to keep my kids in school. I don't need a millionaire to help me. I need understanding that we are all trying to do our best. Thomas frowned, and the pressure in the room swelled. The woman's words rippled like a stone dropped in water, creating waves of acknowledgement from others. I need someone to listen. Isn't that the first step? Encouraged by this surge of spontaneity, Emily stepped forward. We can't ignore the reality of privilege. We need allies, people who recognize that sharing their platform, their influence, can make a difference. It's about working together. The passion in her voice electrified the air, she could sense their hearts beginning to beat as one. Thomas shifted, discomfort flickering across his features as the audience rallied behind Emily and Mia. Yet, his expression hardened once more. And tell me, he asked, performing a mocking dramatic pause, what if I don't want to be part of this community of feelings? Mia didn't falter. Then you'll miss out on real change. You'll miss out on a chance to be part of something bigger than yourself, she replied, her eyes glinting with determination. Those words hung in the air, charged and alive. It was nearly electric. Emily could feel so much at stake, the potential for connection dancing just out of reach. Would Thomas, the symbol of their division, falter and join their race toward empathy, or would he dig in his heels, blocking the way? Emily felt a mix of fear and hope inside her. A simple yet profound truth floated in her mind: change begins with one brave voice daring to challenge another. But now, in this moment, what would the billionaire choose? To embrace their call or fortify the walls they desperately sought to dismantle? As silence engulfed the room again, every heartbeat seemed to echo, the answer dangling precariously in the air. Would Thomas resonate with their plea or remain lost in his echo chamber? The air was thick with anticipation, every person straining to read the emotions unfolding on Thomas's face. A myriad of reactions danced through the crowd. Some leaned forward, eyebrows knitted with hope, while others looked on with skepticism. Emily felt small, the weight of the room pressing down on her shoulders as she awaited his response. After what seemed like an eternity, Thomas shifted in his seat, his fingers drumming impatiently on the table. You're all romanticizing this, he said, his voice low but dripping with disbelief. What you're proposing sounds lovely, but it's impractical. The world isn't gentle. It's competitive and harsh. Money drives everything. Emily's spirit sank momentarily. Was he really that closed off? She caught a glimpse of Mia, steadfast beside her. There was a fire in her eyes that spoke of unyielding faith, a belief in the words they were sharing. Without a second thought, Emily nodded towards her, sensing their shared resolve. Isn't that the very problem? Mia replied, her voice filled with emotion. We're not just dreams and hopes, we're people. We're a community. You talk about money like it's everything, but those figures you juggle represent our lives, our struggles, and dreams. A ripple of agreement coursed through the crowd. People were leaning in, drawn to the raw urgency pulsing through the room. Thomas's eyes darted back and forth, as if he was searching for something, an escape route or perhaps validation for his rigid beliefs. Breaking through the tension, the woman from the back stood again, her voice shaking. I'm scared. Every month feels like a battle. I've sacrificed meals for my kids to stay in school. I just want someone to see me, to see all of us. We are not just numbers. With each word, the crowd roared into life. Voices rose, stories spilled forth. A tapestry of experiences began weaving together, each thread vibrant and filled with pain, hope, and humanity. From single parents to college students, everyone was drawn into the collective heart of the moment. They were pleading for recognition, a simple acknowledgement that the struggles were real. Thomas's hardened demeanor faltered for a brief moment. He glanced down, visibly caught off guard, as if the focus of the room had shifted. Him challenged the fortress around his hardened heart. Emily could see the shift, cracks were appearing in his facade. What about you then? Emily stepped forward. What if you opened your door just a crack? What if you took a step into our world? This isn't just about empathy, it's about change. What if you chose to invest in something beyond your bottom line? The onlookers fell silent. Thomas remained still, though his lips turned slightly downwards as if mulling over a long-buried truth. The sweat on his brow glistened, the weight of decision palpable. Silence reigned as they waited for a response that could change everything. Thomas finally looked up. You think I don't care? He uttered, his voice barely above a whisper, suddenly stripped of bravado. You think I'm just a cold businessman? Maybe I don't even know how to care. Emily's heart quickened. Had they truly reached him? And maybe, just maybe, he continued, what if caring means something different for me than it does for you? The question lingered in the air, heavy with uncertainty, spinning the crowd's energy into an electric charge. People exchanged glances, their expressions swirling with intrigue, nerves, and cautious hope. Emily took a step closer, her voice steady. Maybe that's where we start, she said gently. Together, we can figure it out. But you have to meet us halfway. The crowd collectively inhaled, knowing they were standing on the edge of something monumental. Would Thomas finally find common ground, or would a new wall form, one that could divide them once more? In that pivotal moment, the answer hung tantalizingly in the balance, illuminating their journey with infinite possibilities. What would it take for Thomas to truly face himself? What shared future lay ahead, and was he ready to take that leap? The crowd held its breath, a collective heartbeat echoing in the silence. Thomas sat motionless, his brow furrowed in deep contemplation. Emily searched his eyes, hoping to see some flicker of understanding, but they were stormy and conflicted. Mia nudged Emily softly. We have to keep pushing, she whispered. With a nod, Emily stepped forward again, feeling a surge of determination. We're not asking you to abandon your reality, Thomas. Just to listen, to feel, to maybe see what we see. As she spoke, a hushed murmur spread through the crowd. People began to recall their own struggles. A man in the front stood and said, I've lost my job. My kids ask me, Daddy, are we still going to have dinner tonight? I don't know how to tell them. His voice cracked, vulnerability cascading through the room. Several people nodded in agreement, sharing stories of bios, sacrifices, and dreams hindered by the harsh economy. The woman from the back spoke up again, I stay up at night, worrying. All I want is a chance for a better life for my children. Each heart-wrenching tale built upon the last, a rising tide of emotion flooding the space. As the stories flowed, Emily felt the atmosphere shifting. The steel wall around Thomas seemed to tremor, weariness creeping in. She sensed that beneath his polished exterior, he was grappling with a truth he had long denied. I get it, Thomas stammered, his voice raw. But what can I possibly do? I'm just one person. A hint of despair marred his confident facade. You can listen, Emily replied, her voice steady yet gentle. And more than that, you can choose to act. You can invest in us, in our community. Let us build something together. It doesn't need to be grand, it just needs to be genuine. A flicker of uncertainty was replaced by a glimmer of hope in Thomas's eyes. And what about success? He countered, his tone softer now. What if it fails? What if it doesn't? Mia chimed in, her voice unyielding. What if you empower us to change our circumstances? Success isn't just measured by profits, it's a legacy built on hope, on lives transformed. The crowd erupted in affirmation, voices rising in agreement. Thomas leaned back, visibly shaken. For the first time, he seemed vulnerable. Emily's heart raced. This was at the moment of reckoning. She adapted, urging him on. Remember the stories you've heard. They matter. It's not about you, it's about all of us. Together, we can create something beautiful. The tension hung in the air as if the room were charged with electricity, like a storm about to break. Thomas inhaled deeply, the weight of possibility pressing down on him. Would he take the chance? Suddenly, a small girl, barely 7, tugged at Thomas's sleeve. Her eyes sparkled with innocence. "Can you help my mom?" she asked, breaking through the heaviness. "We just need someone to see us, just like you." The room stilled, and all eyes turned to Thomas. A million thoughts raced through his mind as the weight of the girl's gaze anchored him in stark reality. What decisions lay ahead? As the silence deepened, Thomas finally broke it with a tremor in his voice. Maybe I've been looking at this all wrong." The words sank into the crowd, but would that recognition be enough? Emily held her breath, feeling the anticipation clawing at her throat. And as he rolled the possibility around in his head, no one dared to blink or breathe too loudly, knowing they were teetering on a precipice of change. Could he truly shift his perspective? In that lingering moment, a million possibilities opened up, and Emily couldn't help but wonder. Was this the beginning of something transformative, or just another fleeting hesitation? The air was thick with tension. Thomas leaned forward slightly, piercing through the silent dread enveloping the room. The faces around him, each marked by hope, desperation, and resilience, felt like they were pulling him into their shared plight. Emily's heart pounded as she dared to meet his gaze, desperately searching for a flicker of commitment. "What do you think, Thomas?" Mia asked, her voice a steady guide through the storm. "Are you willing to help? We need someone who can listen and act." The crowd's focus intensified, each person hanging on his answer as if it were a lifeline. Thomas opened his mouth but paused, lost in thought. He was not a stranger to doing well for himself. He had built his empire on intellect and ambition, yet the very air of those who sought his help weighed heavy on him. How had it come to this? Not too long ago, he'd walked through life guarding his interests, a fortress of steel built around his success. The small girl still stood beside him, her innocent eyes unwavering. With a soft nudge from Emily, she spoke again. "Please, Mr. Thomas, my mom says you're important. You can help us." The honesty in her plea stirred something deep within him. I never thought about community," he confessed, his voice quaking ever so slightly. "I was always focused on winning, on making it big." The admission hung in the air like a question, a challenge to himself. "Winning isn't everything if you don't have people to share it with," Emily said softly. A spark of recognition flickered in Thomas's eyes. "You can still choose to be more than just a success story, Thomas. You can make a difference." The crowd leaned in, hearts mirroring the elevation of hope with each word spoken. Thomas's shoulders seemed to relax, the burden of choice mingling with potential. One step at a time, a path unfolded before him. Could he genuinely be the change they needed? "Okay," he finally said. "What does that look like? How do I even start?" The question welcomed the warmth in the room, eagerness bubbling to the surface as people huddled closer. Mia smiled brightly, seizing the moment. "Together, we can create something meaningful. We can build programs, mentorships, and opportunities. Let us host community days where we come together and educate each other. Your experience and connections could change lives." Her words ignited a spark. Thomas felt a wave of possibility wash over him. It was a different kind of success, one grounded in shared victories and mutual respect. Emily stepped beside him, her presence like an anchor. Think about all those stories you heard tonight. We can unite our efforts and talents, create projects that uplift us all. As they batted ideas around, enthusiasm filled the room. Thomas felt the weight shift. For the first time, he saw not just individuals seeking help but potential partners in a collective journey. Yet, lingering at the edge of his thoughts, a small voice warned, "What if this doesn't work?" His doubts wavered but were quickly swept aside in the face of raw, tangible hope. Then another voice, louder this time, a phrase from a faceless member of the crowd pierced through the noise. "Can you get others to listen? To believe in us?" In that instant, a flicker of fear danced with excitement inside Thomas. Could he be the catalyst for change beyond this room? The energy surged, electric and palpable, wrapping around him. What if this wasn't just a shift in perspective but a new purpose? What if the power of his resources could unlock doors once seen as permanently closed? As he considered these questions, another young voice piped up, "And can we have books?" Thomas blinked, the innocent request unexpectedly potent. "Books?" he echoed, letting the idea sink in. "Yes. My mom stays up late reading, and she teaches us. Books can help everyone." Her eyes shined with the innocence of dreams yet to unfold. The simplicity of her wish struck a chord. Education and knowledge, the keys to unlock countless opportunities. Thomas felt it, a sense of urgency and a desire to turn this simmering momentum into action, with newfound resolve. He spoke up, "Let us make it happen. Let us bring stories to life." He didn't know how or when, but there was something growing within him, a sense of belonging, purpose, and determination. But as he spoke, a knock echoed from behind. A stranger stood at the door, looking uncertain, as curious eyes turned to wonder what this unexpected visitor could mean. Thomas felt a chill run through him. What twist was about to unfold? Would this moment of hope meet a new challenge? The sound of the knock pulled every eye to the door, a mix of curiosity and apprehension filling the room. Thomas's heart raced, uncertainty clawing at his insides. He stepped away from the small circle of hopeful faces, drawn to the door like a moth to a flame. As he opened it, the stranger stepped into view. A tall woman, her clothes slightly worn, stood there with a determined look set firmly on her face. Her eyes darted around the room, absorbing the energy that crackled in the air. "I'm sorry to intrude," she said, her voice strong yet tempered by a hint of shyness. "I heard the voices from outside." "Who are you?" Thomas asked, his curiosity piqued. "I'm Clara," she replied, her gaze landing on the young girl who had asked for books. "I'm a single mother. My daughter has been asking for more books, and I wanted to know if you could really help us." The room buzzed with whispers as Clara's presence filled the space like an unexpected spark. Thomas took a moment to process her words. Here was another voice, another story woven into the fabric of their growing community, and it resonated deeply. "What do you need, Clara?" he asked gently, feeling the weight of her resolve. She hesitated before responding. "It's not just about books. It's about hope. I've been sacrificing meals just to keep up with her school needs. She dreams big, and I want to give her the world," but her voice trailed off, the pain and determination reflected in her eyes. "I need help. We need help." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Thomas felt a knot tighten in his chest, the raw honesty of her admission hitting him hard. Clara wasn't alone. How many others felt the same way? How many sacrificed their own needs for the dreams of their children? "Let us do something about this," Thomas affirmed, surprising even himself. "You're here now, asking for help. Let us turn that need into action." At that moment, he caught Emily's gaze. She smiled, the kind of smile that reached her eyes, lighting a spark of inspiration. Sensing that they were all in this together, Thomas felt an overwhelming surge to rise to the occasion. "We could start a community library," Mia suggested, her enthusiasm infectious. "We can gather donations, set up a space, and create an avenue for knowledge sharing. Not just books, but workshops, tutoring, everything we can think of." Clara's eyes widened. I could help with literacy programs. I know many parents who want to read with their kids but don't know how. Yes. Thomas encouraged, the potential rolling through him like a wave. We'll organize weekly gatherings, set up programs, and build a network of support. As the crowd erupted in a flurry of ideas, Thomas remained at the center, feeling the warmth of a community igniting around him. A sense of belonging enveloped him, filling the void he hadn't realized existed, but as voices mingled and plans began to form, an ominous shadow approached from the back of the room. Another stranger, a man clad in sharp business attire, stepped forward, clearing his throat. I overheard, he began, his tone shifting quickly from casual interest to something more commanding. Are you really prepared to run a community project? What if this doesn't scale? What if it fails? The room fell silent, the energy abruptly sucked out. Thomas felt his heart quicken, the weight of self-doubt resuming its grip. Clara's face mirrored the uncertainty brewing in the air. How could they face this challenge together if the fear of failure loomed so large? Yet, as Thomas looked around the room, he saw the faces illuminated with hope, basking in the light of a shared vision. He instinctively knew he couldn't let fear silence the voice of something so important. Failure isn't an option, Thomas finally replied, lifting his chin defiantly. We'll learn and grow together. We owe it to each other to try. The man raised an eyebrow, a hint of skepticism lingering in his expression. You think you can convince others to join you? Watch us, Thomas shot back, feeling fire ignite in his belly. Clara, with renewed strength, stepped beside him. We will raise our voices for every child like mine. We will show that hope can win over doubt. The challenge hung in the air, a mix of anticipation and anxiety as the group's eyes flitted between Thomas and the newcomer. Could they truly find a way forward? And as the weight of potential pressed down on him, Thomas knew they were at a pivotal moment. Could he rise beyond his fears and doubts? Could they turn this dream into reality? Their journey was just beginning, and the stakes had never felt higher. What would it take to keep that momentum alive? The atmosphere in the room felt thick with uncertainty. Silence hung over them, shifting from excitement to trepidation as the man in the business suit stood there, arms crossed and skeptical. He clearly wouldn't be an easy person to convince. Thomas could practically hear everyone's thoughts racing, doubts swirling like a dark storm cloud ready to rain on their parade. Clara turned to Thomas, her eyes full of questions. Both their hearts beat faster, echoing each other's anxiety. Would they really be able to rally enough support to make a difference? The challenge presented by the stranger felt enormous, but somewhere amid the trepidation lay the seeds of resolve. Breaking the heavy silence, Thomas cleared his throat. Okay, let us gather our strengths. We have stories here. We have dreams. We can turn this into something real. He felt courage rise within him, his voice building with each syllable. Let us start sharing those stories. People want change, and they're looking for a reason to believe. We just need to show them the impact we can make together. With that, the floodgate of ideas cracked open. Mia suggested forming small groups to brainstorm resources. Emily chimed in, offering her connections at the local library. Their network might just be the outreach they needed. Others fired off thoughts about community events, pop-up workshops, and reading nights filled with laughter echoing in a space they could foster. I could gather donations from local businesses, Clara volunteered, her initial hesitation replaced by a spark of determination. Some of them may not even know they can help. As the ideas flowed, laughter and voices filled the space once more. The newcomer shifted uncomfortably, noticing the community's resolve, yet he maintained his stoic facade. Thomas caught his eye, sensing a flicker of doubt creeping into the man's demeanor. Maybe, just maybe, they could turn that doubt into disbelief. Let us plan a launch event, said Mia, her enthusiasm infectious. We can invite the whole neighborhood. Show them what we want to create. Thomas felt a swell of hope washing over him. Excitement brewed among everyone. They clutched their ideas with reverence, as if the mere act of sharing them made them more tangible. The reality of their dreams began to crystallize in the air, but triumph was fleeting. The intense gaze of the man lingered, a perpetual reminder of the challenge still looming before them. He shifted again, sizing up the group. "What makes you think you can pull this off? What is your backup plan when it all goes south?" Those words crashed through their enthusiasm like a crashing wave. Fear threatened to seep into their resolve, clouding the sparkle of their budding hope. Thomas's heart raced. He could feel Clara's hand trembling beside him, caught between the weight of doubt and the yearning for a brighter future. Determined, Thomas met the man's gaze directly. "Because we're not just a project. We're families. We're friends. We're a community determined to lift each other up. We're fighting for our children's future." The tension was thick, but he could feel a shift. A few spectators began to nod, lifting their heads higher. Around them, doubt began to thaw, replaced by budding unity and shared purpose. "Curiosity often precedes doubt," the man said, more contemplative now. "You've certainly piqued my interest. Show me the first steps then. Prove that this community can thrive." A spark ignited in Thomas. "We will." The walls that seemed to constrict them now felt lighter, infused with possibility. They were on the precipice of something extraordinary. But as they gathered their ideas, an unexpected chime echoed from the side of the room. A young girl, Clara's daughter, had been quietly listening all along, perhaps even dreaming bigger than any of them could imagine. "Can I help, too?" Her voice rang out, bright and hopeful, cutting through the afternoon gloom and igniting pride in Clara's heart. At that moment, Thomas felt an awakening within him. Their journey was just beginning, but it felt riskier and more personal than ever. Could they truly transform aspirations into reality, not just for Clara and her daughter, but for all the families waiting for a voice? And as excitement hummed under the surface, Thomas realized they would have to act quickly. Soon, he would be facing challenges far greater than they had anticipated, and some might arise from those closest to them. Would their flame of hope stand firm against the winds of fear and doubt? The vibrant energy in the room buzzed with anticipation as their shared excitement painted a vivid picture of the future. Emily stood side by side with Mia, their hearts aligned in a beautiful rhythm of determination. Clara's daughter, her eyes sparkling with possibility, had stirred something deep within Thomas, a craving for connection that had long been dormant. "Let us make a plan," Thomas declared, his voice steady and resolute. "We'll set a date for this community launch and invite everyone." The gravity of his words resonated through the crowd. A wave of agreement rippled, carrying the hopes of desperate parents, eager children, and engaged community members. Mia's eyes darted excitedly. "We can create flyers, social media posts, and get everyone involved, make our voices heard." The thrill of belonging filled the atmosphere, amplifying the strength that burdened each of their hearts. As ideas unfolded, Emily poured her soul into the planning. They bounced around practicalities, envisioning a day where families could gather, share stories, and explore what it meant to build a supportive community. Each word felt like a brick laid down on a foundation that had been frail for too long. The fear that had once gripped them started to loosen its icy grip, unveiling passionate hope beneath, yet, lurking at the back of her mind, was doubt. She could still hear the skepticism that had pierced through their budding unity. Thomas's commitment felt fragile, dancing on the edge of uncertainty. Could he stand firm when the tide of cynicism pulled at his resolve? Deep down, she knew vulnerability united them, but would it be enough? As the meeting stretched on, the room filled with laughter and collective brainstorming, a glimmer of light broke through the shadows. Thomas met Emily's gaze, the weight of unspoken promises hanging in the air. "I've been thinking," he said slowly, his tone growing serious. "What if I help fund this project? We could set aside resources for books, educational programs, and community events." Gasps echoed through the space, waves of disbelief and excitement flowing over them. Emily felt a rush of hope, a desire bursting forth from a fragile seed. "Are you sure?" Clara asked, her voice trembling with a mixture of vulnerability and gratitude. This is a big step. I'm sure, he replied, his eyes resolute and sincere. It's time I put my success to work for something that matters. The room erupted into applause, people exchanging glances of disbelief and joy. Mia beamed with pride, her small chest swelling as her mother absorbed the enormity of the moment. Emily leaned on the table, her heart brimming with gratitude, but just as the applause receded, the man in the business suit chimed in again, this time, his tone more questioning than mocking. And if this all does fail, if you lose your funding, what then? What's the backup plan? A hush fell over the crowd, their moment of triumph teetering on the brink of doubt once more. Emily caught her breath, fighting to keep hold of the positivity swirling around them. She felt Mia's small hand interlaced in hers, a sweet anchor amidst the uncertainty. I believe we'll learn, Emily finally spoke, her voice steadier than she felt. Every step we take will be a lesson. Together, we'll rise even if we stumble. Success isn't built on a perfect path, it's what we create from our struggles that truly defines us. Clara nodded, her spirit rekindled. It's about more than just one event. It's about building a network, a community where we're not just individuals but neighbors supporting each other, she added fervently. The room buzzed anew, spurred by renewed determination. Hope coursed through them, each face shining with a determination to fight against the shadows of doubt. As the evening dwindled, Thomas leaned in closer, reflecting the slight vulnerability he now embraced. I want to genuinely understand what your needs are. Let us set up meetings, incorporate feedback, and ensure we deliver what is truly valuable for the community. The collective sigh of relief felt like a promise of new beginnings, the dawn after an uphill struggle. Emily smiled, her heart swelling with a rare sense of unity. The last words of the night were filled with optimism and resolve. They committed to convene weekly, to hold each other accountable, and to watch as the seeds they planted began to blossom into something beautiful. As Emily walked home that night, Mia by her side, a warm glow filled her chest. Mom, we did it. We're making a change. Mia exclaimed, her face radiant with joy. Yes, we are, Emily replied, the words catching in her throat a mixture of disbelief and gratitude for the miracles unfolding around them, and as the stars illuminated the clear Midwestern sky, they walked hand in hand, united not just as mother and daughter, but as warriors in this newfound battle for change, each step resonating with the promise of hope, compassion, and community. This is where their story begins anew, with determination swirling through them like a bright beacon, guiding their journey ahead, a journey they now knew was possible because they chose to believe in each other. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, and comment your reactions and feelings about the ending. Don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.